Perfect. Great. Okay, and we'll be posting this on the ADE website. So if you have colleagues who maybe couldn't attend or you think this will be valuable for them, they can watch the recording at any time. So I want to tell you good morning. My name is Tammy Waller. I'm the Director for K-12 Social Studies and World and Native Languages at the Department of Ed. This week is my official 6th year anniversary here. And prior to that, I taught for 23 years, grades 7 through 12 in several school districts, social studies, mostly civics, economics, and history. And really excited that you're here today. And thank you so much for giving up some of that precious time that you have during the summer. I don't ever call it vacation time because I remember my summers were not really filled with much vacation. They were filled more with preparation, but I hope you were able to get some relaxation and some great time this summer, because I know that you guys had just a year last year. So we are really excited to have you here too, because we have new standards. And although last year was the first technical full implementation year, we know COVID kind of got in the way of things. And one of the changes to the standards, and this is based on legislation as well, is the fact that we have more emphasis on financial literacy, K through 12, and then more economic standards being taught grades kindergarten through 8th grade than before. So we're really lucky to have Nicole here from EverFi, who'll introduce herself in a minute. EverFi is a really amazing partner that we've worked with over the years to bring really good quality financial literacy and economics education and curriculum, among other subject areas, to our Arizona teachers and students. Before Nicole introduces herself, I'm going to have Linda go ahead and introduce herself.
Hello, everyone. My camera is not working, so you just have to look at the ADE picture. But I just wanted to introduce myself and say welcome and thank you for coming to another S5 session. I see a lot of familiar names. My name is Linda Burrows, and I am the K-12 Social Studies and World and Native Languages Specialist here at the Department of Ed, and thank you so much for coming.
So I'm going to turn it over to Nicole, and this is, she's going to be facilitating the training today. And Linda and I will be available in the chat to monitor the chat and to help out. So Nicole, why don't you go ahead and tell us a little bit about yourself in EverFi.
Sounds good. Absolutely. Thank you for having me, Tammy and Linda. This is wonderful. As I said, it's so great to see folks from all over Arizona joining us today. So this is very exciting. I will go ahead and introduce myself in a minute here, but just wanted to make sure we had our agenda set for today. So our goal for our time together is really for you all to walk away fully set up to implement some econ financial literacy lessons. I usually say tomorrow if I'm doing this in the school year, but obviously it is the summer. So whether you want to do this the first day of school, the first week, the first month, whenever this is going to be a priority for you, the goal is for you to walk away from our time together today fully set up to do that. So how are we going to get there? We are going to chat just a little bit about EverFi as a company. We are going to do a resource overview of the Econ Finlet resources we have available to you. We'll talk through some implementation best practices, what I've seen from teachers in Arizona previously, and then the fun part happens where I stop talking and you actually get to get your feet wet, get your hands dirty, play around in your own EverFi account and really start to figure out how this might take life in your own classroom. I do have a couple slides for pauses for questions, but if you have questions throughout or comments, please type into the chat. I would love to hear from you all. And I believe my wonderful colleague, Jessica, is also in attendance today. So if you do have questions that I'm not able to answer immediately, she should be there in the chat for you as well. So if you see some, yep, there she is, Jessica Golden. She is my colleague and will be able to answer your questions as well. So I'm Nicole Barbario. I live here in the Phoenix area, and I'm a former teacher. I've been with EverFi for about 5 years now, going on 5 years, and my job is really to support you all, to support educators. So if you forget every single thing that I say today, except for one thing, it's really that I'm here to help you, implement these resources so that you can check those standards off your list. I'm available via email. You will get these slides and follow up with a link to schedule a video meeting with me if you just want to go through exactly your personal situation. I teach 8th grade social studies. I know I'm going to need a financial literacy resource in March. What do I do? I'm happy to help you get fully set up. So I'm here to help. Remember that as we're going through all the resources today. A little bit about EverFi as a company. We are an education technology company. We actually started with financial education many, many years ago. We started with our high school financial literacy resource to really support students who maybe weren't hearing about things like budgeting and needs versus wants and savings accounts at home or even in school. As you can see, since then, we have brought our financial education resources down all the way to 4th grade. So we'll be talking about those 4th through 8th grade financial literacy resources today. But we've also broadened our horizons just a bit. And we know that we are not the expert in financial education and SEL and academic early readiness, all of these topics. So we go find the experts in these fields, educators, folks who are doing the research, really working in the trenches with whatever the content area is. And they help us build out some really fantastic digital lessons that your students can work through at their own pace in the classroom. So you'll see here, for example, in the upper left-hand corner, Vault, which is one of the resources we'll be talking about today. It's 5 15-minute lessons that your students can work through independently. So these are meant to be supplemental. They're meant to go along with the existing curriculum you have. But if you don't have curriculum, that's okay too, because we do have some additional goodies for you. So all of these resources that are supplemental, gamified for your students are all available for you at absolutely no cost. We have some amazing local and national partners that have really invested in our education system. So you can see the Coyotes, the Cardinals, Comerica Bank. All of these folks have come together to fully fund the resources so that you can use them at absolutely no cost. So you could use our resources with every single student on your campus every single year, and it would never cost you, the school district, your students, your families a dime. And along with those free resources, it comes my help. So I'm here to support you, do trainings like this, support you one-on-one, really whatever you need. If this is a tool that you want to use, I'm here to really remove any barriers for you. All right, so why teach financial literacy? So the elephant in the room that we have already addressed here is that you all are here on summer break. You could be out, well, it's raining where I am right now, but you could be out doing anything and you're really committing your time here. So first of all, thank you. But second, I want to really set our intention for our time here together. Why are you here? Why do you want to be emphasizing financial literacy lessons in your classroom? So in just a second, I'm going to give you the link to a Menti so that we can all create our intention together. So the 2 questions that you'll be going on your phone or on your computer to the Menti website, it's very simple, I promise, in a second, is the first one is just a 1 through 4. How comfortable are you teaching financial literacy lessons? It's anonymous, so you can be completely honest. And then the second one is just, what is your why for being here? Why do you want to make time for financial capability lessons for your students, no matter what grade level you teach? So here it is. You can go on your smartphone or on your computer in another tab. You can go to menti.com. Type in the code there, and then it's just 5 boxes for you. So the first box, 1 through 4, how comfortable are you teaching financial literacy? And then the next 4 boxes are for you to jot down a word or a phrase for your why. Why do you want to emphasize financial literacy lessons for your students? So I'll go quiet for a second here and give you some time to fill that out. Right. We've got some, of course, amazing answers here. So life skills is really taking hold in the center here. We know that this is such a practical skill. Our students are always asking us for adulting lessons, right? So what's more adulting than financial literacy? It's something everyone's going to have to deal with. Responsibility. Yeah, we're going to talk a little bit today about making decisions and practicing that, which is so important for our elementary and middle school students. And if you're practicing decision making, why not loop in some financial literacy there? We want to protect their futures. It's real world preparation. Security, that's a huge one, of course. We know that giving students some financial education is going to make them feel just a little bit more confident to take on the world. Credit card usage, yep, that's a huge one. I did not understand credit until well after I got my first credit card. So being able to introduce that concept to students way before they're given a credit card application is so important. Collaboration, I think that's great. We have discussion guides that go along with our resources, so we're able to give you a little bit of tools there as well. Accountability, that's a great one. Understanding that you have to be responsible and there's going to be a reaction to the decisions that you make with your finances, and you're going to be held accountable for those. Fantastic. Well, I will let this word bubble keep growing. You can absolutely add to it. When I send out the slides, I'll have a slide in here with the word bubble that we built together today so that you have that to come back to. I think this is a really wonderful tool to show your students as well. These are all the different things that come together to make financial literacy important. So if you get the dreaded, why do we need to learn this, right? This is a great place to go. All right, so we're going to do just a quick pause here. I know we haven't been going for too long, but I know that I get busy hands sometimes when I am in a training. So some people just like to sit back, kick back. Hopefully you're on your couch, relaxing and listening. But if you're somebody who likes to play around just a little bit while you're listening, I wanted to give you the opportunity to go ahead and grab your EverFi account so that as I'm talking through the resources we have available, you can be adding them in real time. So if that's your thing, great. You can go to everfi.com/new teacher. And there you're going to have a pretty simple registration process. You choose your state, you are going to choose your school, and then you're going to fill out a username and password. If you are at the district office and you want to create an account, that's okay too. Just choose one of the schools in your district. So it's everfi.com/new teacher. And for those of you who don't want to create an account right now, that's okay. We're going to have plenty of time later to do this. There's, of course, going to be some intricacies. For example, we are integrated through Clever with many districts in Arizona. So you may get stopped on our website because you need to go on through Clever. So if you get stopped at any point, don't worry about it. We'll be able to help you individually with getting an account later. But for those of you who want to grab one right now, you can do that. It takes about a minute. All right, so you all have set your intention for why you're here, why you think financial education is important. I'd like to give a little bit of information about why we at EverFi think financial education is important. So one of the ways that we frame all of our resources, no matter what the content area is under SAMHSA's 8 dimensions of wellness. If this is something you're not familiar with, I would highly recommend checking it out. First of all, it's just a really great way to give you all a pat on the back for what you're doing in your classrooms. You may not think that you are contributing a whole lot to wellness or whole child if you feel like you're just sticking to your social studies standards and curriculum, but there are so many different components to making up a happy human, a happy student, and you are doing so many of those things. Financial happens to be one of the 8 dimensions of wellness that SAMHSA talks about. They have a great quiz on their website. It's something that I had a lot of fun doing, where you note what you may be putting a lot of emphasis into and maybe what you're ignoring a little bit, but it makes you feel pretty good about the things that you are keeping up with and getting that time in there to do social wellness or occupational wellness, whatever it may be. But financial is one of those. The overall financial health of an individual includes learning how to successfully manage financial expenses. So if this is something that you all are going to be covering because of these financial literacy standards, which is absolutely fantastic. This is our EverFi problem set. So just if you're a statistics person, this is the slide for you. So we know that 4 in 10 US consumers reported that they had trouble paying at least one bill or expense in the past year. So this is what we're trying to help plant that seed of financial literacy in the back of our students' minds so that they hopefully won't be one of those 4 in 10. We also know that only 36% of non-retired adults describe themselves as on track for retirement, and 25% have no retirement savings at all. Again, this is something that I didn't start thinking about until well after college. I was not putting any money into my 401k because nobody had ever talked to me about it. So these are the kind of things that we really want to be planting these seeds, even if you have 4th graders, for how to be responsible with money so that they don't need to stress about it now, but they can learn about it so that they can make better decisions and really hopefully plant those foundations of healthy financial habits, because we know that if they form them now, they get this information now, that it's going to inform those bigger financial decisions that they have to make in the future. And of course, the real reason that you all are here is that these are part of your standards. So right from the Arizona Department of Education website, this is a little bit of information on what our economic and financial literacy standards are. So we're helping students answer some personal economic questions. We're helping them make decisions, right? Make reasoned judgments. This also goes into investing. So individuals, businesses, governments, they all work together to allocate resources to make the financial marketplace work. And it also helps to analyze current issues and public policies if we understand a little bit more about economics. So teaching financial literacy is really supporting your students with a lot of these areas. And we've done a lot of the work for you here. So we're going to talk about a few EverFi resources today that we've already aligned to your state standards. So for your 4th grade, 5th grade, and 6th grade students, we have Vault Understanding Money. That's our elementary financial literacy resource. And you can see here all of the standards that course is aligned to. And next up, we have our 8th grade middle school financial literacy resource. Again, we've already done that standards alignment for you based on the Arizona state standards so that you can see exactly which standard and which EverFi lesson is going to fit into what you are working on in any given week. And we also have done a little bit more work for you for many of your districts. We've actually received your scope and sequence and put EverFi right into the scope and sequence for your district. So you can see here that we've listed out the EverFi resource title, the exact lessons within the resource that are aligned, which of your district specific units this is going to align to, and the topics that are addressed. So you know that you're in unit 3 in December, and these are the 3 EverFi lessons that are going to align. So if this is something you're interested in for your district, definitely reach out to me. You'll get my contact information in just a bit. Have your district office reach out, and if we have one, we can share it. And if we don't have one yet, we can figure out a plan to get these resources aligned to your district-specific scope and sequence. All right. So we are going to go over a few EverFi resources now that specifically align to your standards. But as you saw at the beginning, we have quite a few resources. So no matter the grade level, no matter the content area, this slide is what every single EverFi resource has in common. So the first one is data. As I said, our resources are meant to be supplemental. They're, for example, our elementary resource is 5 15-minute lessons. At the beginning of each of those 15-minute lessons, there's a 5-question pre-assessment. And at the end, there's a 10-question post-assessment. Those assessments are automatically graded and uploaded into your teacher dashboards. So the lift is very low for you all. There's no grading required. Once you get your students started on the platform, which takes 5 to 10 minutes depending on the grade level, then really a low lift for you all as students are working independently and those grades are being automatically uploaded for you. And I'll show you what that looks like in a bit. This also gives us the opportunity to return some data to your district. We give an impact report every summer with the knowledge gains, aggregated pre and post assessment scores that happened as students were going through these lessons so that you can rest assured that these resources are supporting your students and they're really learning something. The second one here is lesson tools. As I said earlier, our resources, we're an education technology company. Our resources are digital, but we have lots of goodies for teachers that students don't necessarily have access to from their platform. So we have offline lesson plans that align to each of the digital lessons that students have, things that you can print off, do some minimal prep for, and implement in class. We also have activities, worksheets, all sorts of fun things that students can do offline. We have some implementation guides to support you in presenting and teaching this information to your students, as well as discussion questions. So the discussion questions are great for small group activities, for bell work, an exit ticket, whatever it may be. It just takes a lot of the guesswork out for you all to have all of these great lesson tools alongside the digital lessons. Extension, we won't talk about every resource we have to offer today, but you do have access to every one of them. And then scholarships. We do quite a few different scholarship contests throughout the year. No student is too young to win an EverFi scholarship. We do a blog post, students write some reflections, and then we pick several winners several times throughout the year to win 529 college savings scholarships, usually $1,000. So that's just basically a gift card that students will have in their back pocket until they're ready to go to college and apply that money then. All right, I'm going to pause here. Any questions before we move ahead? And what's coming up next is the really fun part, which is the actual resources. All righty. We will keep going. So financial education at every stage, as you saw earlier, we have 4th through 12th grade resources, and we are going to focus on our 4th through 8th grade resources during this session. So before we do this, I want to actually show you what a student account looks like so that you can start to conceptualize what this actually looks like as a living, breathing lesson in your classroom. Once your students register, which like I said, takes 5 to 10 minutes, just depending on their grade level, they only have to do that once. This is what their EverFi platform is going to look like. If you decide that you only want them to have one EverFi resource, they'll just have one tile here. This is my own personal student account. I have a few different tiles going on, but they'll only have 1 or 2, however many you elect for them to have. As you can see, the button here just says start, pretty self-explanatory for students to direct themselves. And as you can also see, I have already started going through our marketplaces lesson, so it says continue. So students can play through a lesson, leave, come back the next day, open up their computer, log into their EverFi account, and pick up right where they left off by clicking continue. If you click start in the resource, what it's going to do is open up a new tab, and students are going to be able to start the lessons from the home screen. I've already moved ahead just a little bit so that you can see the beginning of Future Smart, which is our middle school financial literacy resource. So what I've already done is been welcomed and taken a little bit of a personality assessment, and I am a visionary. So each student is going to get their own personality trait. I start to stutter a little bit at this point because there is audio happening in my ear. The words are on the screen as well as talking to students so that they can go at their own pace, read if they want to, but also have that audio support. The next thing we're going to do is we're going to name our town, we're going to build our avatar, and we're going to get a little bit of information about healthy financial habits. In addition to the pre-assessment and post-assessment questions that are automatically graded for you, your students are also going to be doing some written reflections as they're going through these lessons. So you'll have access to those written reflections that you can use for a grade if you'd like to, as well as those pre and post-assessment scores. So I'm going to go ahead and go back and click start so that you can see the home screen here. So this is what we were just playing through is Welcome Mayor. Like I said, students are going to name their town, build their avatar, really take ownership. And then after that, they're able to go into any one of these lessons. So if you only have one day, that's okay. You can go through lessons 1 and 2 or lessons 1 and 5, whatever you decide you'd like to do, and then ignore the rest of the resource if you decide that you don't want to go through the whole thing. These are not the Vault lessons. These are the Future Smart lessons, but we're going to go through Vault in just a second here. So that's the student account, just to give you a sneak peek so you can really conceptualize what that looks like for your students. All right, and now we are to Vault, Miss Grable. So our first resource that we're highlighting today is Vault. If you are taking notes or you are in your EverFi account on another screen, this title in the upper left-hand corner is what you'll want to be paying attention to. When you do go into your own EverFi account as a teacher, you'll have access to your catalog tab so that you can add just the resources that you want to take a look at. You don't have to look at all 30 of them. And this is the title here. So if you teach 4th through 6th grade, Vault is your resource. That's the name that you want to jot down. This resource is going to be 5 lessons, about 15 minutes each. And you can see the national standards alignment here. It actually includes our CASEL SEL framework. So students are getting some of that SEL, some of that decision-making support, along with the economics and math lessons that are worked into financial literacy. So our digital lesson structure for Vault, this is similar for most of our resources, but you can see here it starts with that pre-assessment I've been talking about. Students do some problem solving, learning some new concepts. They do a reflection on their personal understanding. So that's why it's so important to give students that independent time to go through these digital lessons, just them and their computer, headphones in, playing, listening, working through scenarios, dragging things on and off the screen so that they can do that personal reflection piece at the end. And then they're going to do that, or in the middle, I should say, and then they're going to do that key activity to really expand their learning. So they had that new learning, they reflected on it a little bit, and then they get to play a game to really put that knowledge to the test before they go through that post-assessment at the end. So lesson 1 in Vault is all about responsible decision making. We're talking about goal setting, which I love for every student. We're talking about needs versus wants, as well as opportunity cost. Lesson 2 is all about having a savings goal, building a budget, being an informed consumer. Lesson 3 is income and careers. So we're talking about all the things we want our students to be thinking about so that they are focusing on their education. What kind of income do you want? What kind of careers do you want? Really building towards that next level. So talking about jobs versus careers, talking about income and what that actually looks like, entrepreneurship and taxes. Lesson 4 is credit and borrowing. So really just the basics here, of course, but they learn how to be a reliable borrower and how to manage debt if they have that. And then finishing up with lesson 5, which is future planning. So taking all of that information that they learned and talking about some pretty advanced topics here, compound interest, what a CD is versus a savings account, and a little bit into insurance. So as you can see from these screenshots, this is gamified. This is fun for our students. They're going to think they're basically playing a video game, but they're learning some really interesting content here. And again, if your students, you don't want your students to go through every lesson, you just want them to try 1 or 2, that's okay too. As I mentioned with the pre and post assessments, we take that information and have some anonymous aggregated data to give back to your district each summer. We also have a statewide impact report. So the data that you're looking at right here is from every student in the state of Arizona that went through the Vault resource in the 1920 school year. We don't quite have 2021 yet. So you can see in gray at the bottom, those are the average pre-assessment scores of the students. So low 60s, even into the high 70s over here. This is likely content students haven't heard very much of before. But then after they go through that lesson, that reflection, that activity, they then are scoring up into the 80s. So some true knowledge gains happening here and some perspective shifts as well as your students are exposed to this content. All right, moving on from Vault to our Future Smart resource. This resource is nationally suggested for grades 6 through 8, but in Arizona, it's most closely standards aligned to 8th grade social studies. Our students are becoming mayor of their town, and they're helping their constituents make financial decisions. So this is the resource that I showed you just a moment ago. This is what Future Smart looks like. Lesson 1, like I said, is just really a welcome and introduction. Lesson 2 is all about smart shopping. So we're building a budget. We are understanding strategies and making spending decisions. What we're doing here is helping a little boy redecorate his bedroom. So for example, he needs a lamp to do his homework at his desk, but he really wants a cool new decoration for his room. So how do we balance these needs and these wants based on the budget that we have? The next one is ways to pay. So getting into credit scores, payment types. So of course, these are very closely aligned to our standards. We get into investing. So we're examining some of those skills. We're looking at income potential. We're looking a little bit at education and training requirements for different jobs, and even ways to pay for higher education. I think that this is extremely important for our middle school students. Again, planting that seed in the back of their minds. For whatever reason, it's possible that some of our students have heard something at home or on TV or from friends that college is not an option for them, or training after high school is not an option for them because of financial barriers. So we want to help them to understand that college could be an option for them, and looking at some of these ways to pay for higher education. Lesson 5 is all about growing a business. So you can see a little bit of the fixed expenses versus profit and loss here on the screenshot. So we're analyzing our budget. We are looking at inflation and deflation to help them understand what might go into growing a business. Lesson 6 is all about your financial future. So we're looking at what a return on investment means. Where do you want to be putting your money? And some of those unexpected life events that can happen that can lead to financial loss. So SparkNotes, have a savings account for emergencies. And then finally, our 7th lesson here, which is my personal favorite, is that they get to build a blueprint for their own future. It's going to detail some of their career interests, their plans for higher education, what they should do next. So really giving our students that blueprint, that roadmap for what they should be focusing on as they're finishing out middle school and going into high school. All right, and our 3rd and final resource we're going to cover here today before we talk about some implementation and then actually get you all working in your accounts is Venture. This is our entrepreneurial expedition. This resource is so cool. Students get to own and build their own business. It's always a food truck, which who doesn't love a food truck? But students are looking at all sorts of different components of what it means to build that business. So Lesson 1, we are building a budget, helping them to understand income, taxes, fixed expenses versus variable expenses. Lesson 2 here is the entrepreneur in you. So students are taking that personal diagnostic test that helps them to figure out who am I and what would I be as an entrepreneur. We're looking at planning and building a business. So what does hiring look like? What is market research? Who is your competition? Figuring out some of those background research things that you need to figure out in order to build out your best possible entrepreneurial expedition. And then the 4th one here is your business snapshot. So we're practicing our business pitches. This is one that's really fun to do an extension activity with because everybody loves the show Shark Tank. And that's something that you can do after your students go through Venture, they understand the finances and the nitty-gritty of building a business. Have them actually cook that food for you. What kind of food truck are you going to have? Burgers, tacos? What do you think? Cook it, bring it into school, have a panel of judges. I would be happy to do that for you if you want to invite me into your classroom and let them actually practice this out in your classroom. All right, so those are the 3 resources that we're going over today. Just as a recap, Vault is your resource for elementary students 4 through 6. Future Smart is your middle school resource for 7th and 8th, but most closely standards aligned to 8th social studies. And then Venture is also going to be great for our middle school students, getting some of that financial practice from a business standpoint. So I'm going to pause here to take a sip of water and answer some questions. All right, so Enid wants to know, can 2 different teachers assign 2 different courses for the same student? I teach social studies and the math teacher teaches an elective financial literacy class. We share the same students. The answer is absolutely. So when we get into you all creating your own teacher account, what you'll see is that you're going to be able to create your own cohort based on your own students. So your period 1 class is going to be their own cohort. And then your students are going to create their EverFi account, and they can be in your cohort for Future Smart, let's say. And if your math teacher wants to use our Future Goals Hockey Scholar resource that's standards aligned to math, that teacher can assign it to the same student. So your students are going to have 1 account, and then each tile is going to just be connected to a different teacher, and the grades will go to the teacher that assigned the resource. Hopefully that was a good explanation. Let me know if you need a further question. Let's see. Can this work in connection with Google Classroom or Canvas? So great question. We are connected with Clever for single sign-on. So if you're wanting your rosters to be connected to your EverFi account, then you're going to go through Clever. We do have resources, lessons written out on Canvas and the Canvas Commons that you'll have access to, but we're not connected with Canvas for single sign-on. And for Google Classroom, we can share with you how to best share how to get to EverFi on Google Classroom, but we're not integrated with them with single sign-on either. All right. We will go ahead and move on to some implementation ideas here. So your next steps, if you like what you hear today, is that you'll go over your account, which will get you in just a moment. We are going to see the lesson plans, the digital resources, the discussion questions. That's going to be available to you under resources in your teacher account. After you review, you'll hopefully start to think through, okay, do I want to use this? Yes. When do I want to use this? When does this fit into my scope and sequence? And how do you want to implement this? Do you want to do it in class? Do you want to do it as homework, extra credit? A lot of different implementation ideas we'll talk through in a moment. And for those of you who have used EverFi before, light up the chat. Let us know how you've used it. You all learn way better from each other than you're going to learn from me. And then of course, the third thing here is once you decide when you want to use it, if your students are not one-to-one, you'll want to reserve computers because of course, each student needs their own computer to access their own EverFi account and work through these lessons on their own. Lots of different implementation strategies. These are, of course, aligned to your standards. So you have a couple different options. And I think it really just depends on how comfortable you are with teaching financial literacy and the curriculum, the lesson plans that you already have. You may want to use it as an introduction to new material. So my students, I don't know if they've ever heard about credit before. So I'm going to have them go through this lesson of Vault and just see what those scores look like. Where are we starting? Do students have no idea? Am I seeing a lot of 10, 20, 30, 40%? Or have they heard about this before? Am I getting 70s, 80s, 90s on these assessments? Also, of course, the flip to that is that you can use it as a review. You want to use your own lesson plans or the ones that we've provided on credit. And then you want to put students into that digital lesson in Vault that's about credit to quiz them, see how they're doing and take that as a grade. So a couple different options there. Flipped Classroom is, of course, one of the more popular ways to use our resources, especially in this last year. And then guided independent practice, you can assign it as homework, extra credit. You can assign everything at the beginning of the year to have students register for an account. And then at the end of your quarter or semester, whatever it may be, just tell students, hey, you need to be done with Future Smart and have a passing score in every lesson by the end of the semester. I'll be checking that and it'll be a grade. So letting them do that independently. So whether you have time in class or you want them to be doing it from home or on their own time, those are both options for you. And then implementation ideas that we have gotten from the incredible teachers that we work with. It looks like we've got some lighting up the chat too with some ideas on how Jenna utilized Future Smart, but lots of different ideas depending on how much time you have. So if you have only one day to dedicate to EverFi, break students into small groups, assign the lesson, and then have them just go through that lesson. After they're done with that, which is going to take them, 20 minutes, then they can get into those small groups, talk through what they learned, and then maybe the next day, those small groups then teach the class. So that way you have only taken 1 or 2 days of time, but your students are going to hear about the content in every lesson. For financial literacy, you can't ignore the extra credit score. So students can increase their extra credit score by earning a perfect 850 by going through, completing, and passing every lesson in the resource. And then there's always Ever Fridays. So every Friday when your students get to class, they know the drill. They sit down, they open their computers, they log into their EverFi account, and they pick up right where they left off, since our resources are going to hold their progress. So lots of ideas. These slides, like I said, are going to be emailed to you, so you have these when you're trying to figure it out. But again, I will remind you, I am here to support with implementation. So if you want some ideas for your specific classroom, your specific grade level, the specific amount of time that you have, I'm very happy to support you in figuring out how to maximize EverFi. All right, Ralph likes Ever Friday. I love it. All right. Questions before we move on to showing you an educator account? All right, I'm doing such a good job that no one has questions. That's what I'm hearing. All right, so what I'm going to do now is show you what an EverFi instructor account actually looks like so that you have an idea of what you have available to you. And then after that, I'm going to stop talking for a little while so that you can actually explore on your own the exact resources that are good for your students and figure out how, when you want to utilize those. And then of course, as you all are exploring, Jessica and I will be here available to answer any questions that you have. So whether you have your account or not, I would just ask that you join us on the screen here so that you can see all the little bits and pieces of what you have available to you. And then you can go explore on your own after that. So when you register for an account, which I'm going to walk you through here in a moment, the very first thing you want to do once you get logged in is go to this catalog tab. This is just the general EverFi catalog with every resource that we have to offer. Conveniently, financial education is the first subset here, so you can use these arrows to find the resources. Just a reminder, Vault for elementary, Future Smart, and Venture for middle school. As you can see, I've done this a million times, so I have already added all the resources, but what you'll want to do is just click this green add button for any of the resources that you want to take a look at a little bit more in depth. You can also scroll all the way to the bottom of the catalog and see all available, where you can see every resource that we have to offer. You'll be able to see the resources that are relevant to the grade levels of the school where you registered. So that's the catalog. You'll hear me say this a million times, but it's so important. You can't do anything else unless you do this step. So everyone's going to have to go to the catalog and add these resources right after you register. Once you've added everything, what you'll want to do is go back to your home screen. This is where we're going to spend the majority of our time the rest of the day today, is really figuring out, like I said, what are these resources? What exactly are the lessons? When do I want to use them? You can see I have about 1 million resources listed here. You all will probably only have a couple. So what you'll do is find the resources button on the EverFi course that you want to take a deeper look at. So I have Future Smart up right here. I have a little bit of information, but this isn't enough for me to make a decision. So this resources button is really where you'll want to spend the majority of your time. And specifically, there is a curriculum guide for every resource. This curriculum guide is going to answer every question that you will possibly want to know about the resource. So we've got all the lesson breakdown here. This consists of 7 online lessons. They each last about 30 minutes. Remember, it's self-paced, so it's going to be a little different for each student. We have what the general national standards alignment is, and then you have an idea of the exact resource lessons and what they entail. So you're going to see the learning objectives. You're going to see a breakdown of the activities that students are doing, really to figure out, okay, how many of these lessons do I want to use? When does this fit into my own scope and sequence? So that's the curriculum guide. That again lives under the resources button here for you. So the other thing that lives under the resources button is going to be your lesson plans. So if you want to look at the offline lesson plans, maybe you're like, hey, I was a 1 on the how comfortable am I with teaching financial literacy. You can go down and look at all the different lesson plans that we have in the activities, celebration budget worksheet, transaction type worksheet, and figure out, do I want to use just the digital lessons, or do I want to really build up this blended learning experience for my students? Have them do some bell work with one of the discussion questions, go through the digital lesson for 20 to 30 minutes. And then at the end, maybe break them into small groups and go through some of those discussion questions. It's up to you, of course, but this is your time to really maximize that intention that you gave us earlier. Why are you here? Why do you think financial literacy is important? And how do you want to maximize these lessons in your classroom? This is where you want to be, going through these lesson plans and curriculum guides. And then, of course, there will be a few different resources for you as a teacher, depending on the resource, some posters, implementation guides, all sorts of other things. So all of that lives under the resources button, and each course is going to have a different resources button, so you may have a couple to work through. The fun part is going through the digital lessons, of course. So this is the view course button here. Full transparency, it can be a little glitchy. So if it's not quite working for you, I do apologize, but also do not fear. The functionality for our view course button on the teacher account is completely different than the functionality on the student account. So your students will be able to go through the lessons, no problem. So that's resources and view course, where you can figure out, what is this? What are these lessons about? And when do I want to use them? All right, moving forward, just so you can take a look, once your students are registered and started, which we will of course show you how to do in just a bit, picture this, you're sitting at your desk, your students are all sitting at their desks, they have their headphones in, they are quietly engaged in their EverFi lesson, and you have a moment of silence, which is beautiful. How do you figure out what they're doing? You can go to this reports tab here, and this is where you're going to monitor their progress and see their grades. So I'm going to go to marketplaces and see that my student Taylor has gotten a 100% woo-woo in the first lesson, which is called marketplaces. I didn't have to input any of this when Taylor got started. Their name auto-populated here for me. Your entire class is going to auto-populate here for you. And then their scores are going to auto-populate here. This certified will change from no to yes if students pass every lesson. So that's another way that a lot of teachers will keep track of grades, so that you don't even really have to go in here. All you say is, hey, you need to get certified in your EverFi resource. You have access to their certification, but they do as well from their account. If I were certified in marketplaces, which I'm not because I haven't finished it yet, they would have a button here that says certificate. So that's another way. Email me or print off and give to me your certificate once you've finished. And then you know every student that hands you a certificate has completed the resource, passed every lesson with a 70% or above. And then, of course, I only have one class right now, but if you had multiple class periods, you'd be able to filter your report by class period to make things a little bit easier when you save as CSV, which is downloading it into an Excel file, if you want to use these grades in your main grade book. All right. let's see, some questions came in. Jess, it looks like you got them, hopefully. So we are going to now teach you how to get your EverFi account. We're going to make sure everybody's in there, but it'll take varying amounts of time, of course. So just to recap, once you get into your EverFi account, the first thing you want to do is go to catalog, add those resources to your home screen so that you can spend this time exploring. How are you exploring? You are exploring from this resources button. Curriculum guide, that's your best place to go first to figure out exactly what the lessons entail and start getting you thinking when you'd like to use them. And then if you are super fast, you can start creating your classes, but we're gonna teach you how to do that in a little bit. So now it's just about catalog and resources when you get in. All right, so how do you get an EverFi account? Great question. Thanks for asking. There are two different options. If you know that you have access to EverFi via Clever, through the EverFi app on your District Clever page, you can log in that way. If I am speaking French essentially to you right now and you have no idea what I'm talking about, that's okay too. The main way to get a EverFi account is through our website, which is everfi.com/newteacher. So that's where you'll go. I can't type and talk at the same time. I wish I could. everfi.com/newteacher. And what you'll do is fairly self-explanatory. You're going to pick your state, pick your school, and then you will create your username and password. Once you do those three things, you're going to be on the screen that looks like this, and you go straight to the catalog. So I am going to pause talking to let you all register and then start exploring those resources, but Jessica and I will be here to answer questions.
Hi, everyone. One thing that has come up, Nicole, can you hear me? Can you give me the phone? Okay. One thing that has come up, as we are in summer, if you are in a Clever district, sometimes our districts are pausing the sync, which then doesn't allow you necessarily to be able to access through Clever. So if you are, you know that you're a Clever teacher, you know that that's how you get access to EverFi and you're having some issues today, please let us know. So thank you, Jonathan Bailey, for giving me the heads up. We're going to troubleshoot on our end. We'll send a note to the district to figure out when that sharing will resync. So if anyone else is having difficulties with that process, let us know.
I'm going to go ahead and pause the recording until we get everything going back together again.
Everyone, I hope you are having a good time exploring, but I need to rip you away from that momentarily. I am going to show you how to actually get your students started. So this process is going to be a little bit different depending on if you are a Clever integrated teacher or you are logging in through our platform. So just keep in mind as I'm talking, I may be talking about Clever versus non-Clever, but for the most part, the process of you setting up classes is fairly simple and the same for both. So first things first, if you haven't done this, as I said, you'll hear this like a broken record, you have to go to the catalog tab first. You are not able to set up any classes unless you go to the catalog and add all the resources that you're looking at. Once you've done that, you should see them all listed on your home screen. So I just want to do a quick check to make sure the resources that I want to use with my students are listed here. They are great. So what I want to do here is go to the classes tab. This is where you will find what you've already set up for this year and then where you'll go when you want to set up some new classes. So as you can see, I've already set up a few of my class periods for this year. My period 1 class is a high school financial skills class. So all the students who register in period 1 are going to have access to these 5 specific lessons, no more, no less. My period 2 class is actually an 8th grade social studies class, so they're only going to have access to Future Smart for now. I might go in and add Venture for them later. And then my period 3 class is financial skills for 4th through 6th grade, and they are only going to have access to Vault when they log in. So as you can see, I have put this together in a pretty organized manner to ensure that when I do go to these grade reports, every single student in every single class period isn't listed in one report. I'll be able to edit down to see just my period 1 class, just my period 2 class, and so on. If you are a Clever integrated teacher, these are going to be your exact rosters that the district has provided. So every student in that roster will have automatic access to the resources. So I'm ready to set up my classes. I want to go for period 5 here since I have period 1 through 4. So what I'm going to do is click Create Class. What this does is it will pull up a short form for you to fill out. If you are a Clever integrated teacher, you'll have a drop down here once the rosters are in the system. I'm sure they're not yet for any of your districts. You'll have a drop down here so that you can select one roster at a time to grant immediate access to our courses. If you're not Clever integrated, that's totally fine. We're just going to name our own class periods here. So I'm going to do class period 5, financial literacy. And then my start date, this is just general. If you pick August and you start in September, that's totally fine. You're just going to get an email from me saying, hey, you said you were going to get started in August. Can I help you? Do you need any PowerPoints or PDFs to help your students get started? As I said earlier, every resource that's available on our platform is no cost to you all, but somebody has paid for them. So giving us your start date just helps us to report back to the Arizona Cardinals or the Arizona Coyotes, whoever your sponsor is, to let them know about when you're going to get started on the resources that they have provided. So I think September realistically is when I'll get started here. I have this many students. The grade level is going to be, let's say, 8th grade, and then I'm going to click this Add Courses button. The tiles that show up here are going to be the same as the tiles on your homepage that you added from the catalog. So what I'll do now is just go through and select the resources that I want my students in this class period to have access to. What I'll do next is click Add, and then just make sure, yep, these are the 4 courses that I wanted, and I'm going to click Create. What this does is it brings up a code. You do not have to memorize this. It's going to live under your classes tab, but this is the code that you're going to give your students when they register on our website. If you're a Clever teacher, you don't have a code. The students in that roster are just going to have automatic access when they log into their Clever account and click the EverFi app. For those of you who are not using through Clever, you have this code and it's still incredibly simple. So when your students come to class, what you're going to do is tell them to sit down, open their computer, and go to, hold please, I need to log out. The instructions will be to go to everfi.com/register. When they go to everfi.com/register, there's only one thing for them to do, and it's to input that registration code that you've written on the board for them or put into Google Classroom for them. From there, they're going to create their own accounts, username, password, and then once they do that, they are in. They're going to have the dashboard that looks exactly like yesterday. I misspelled my last name, which was very embarrassing. Okay, which looks exactly like this. So open your computer, open Google Chrome, go to everfi.com/register, enter the code, select or create your username and password, and that's it. They're in. They have only the tiles that you elected for them to have, right? So period 5 has only these tiles, period 4 has only these tiles, and so on. And then they're good to just put those headphones on, click start, and work independently through these lessons, which you are then quietly monitoring from your reports tab. Ralph, is there a way for teachers to know usernames and passwords in case they forget? Absolutely. So if your student comes to class, I forgot my username, I forgot my password, you have access to all of that. Your students are going to auto-populate here under this Students tab. You'll see their name. This is their username, so you can just tell them their username. And then what you can do is reset their password for them. So my suggestion, if your students are registering, is that usernames need to be unique, but passwords can all be the same. So for example, if every student wants to do their initials and their student ID number as their username, awesome. And then every student could have EverFi 2021 as their password if you wanted them to. So reset password here, username is here. All right, so the next couple minutes we'll be practicing just setting up your classes for the year. So if you're in Clever and your district has shut down your access, I apologize. For those of you who are able to log in, go ahead and click that classes tab and click create class and fill out this form for your first class period. If you're an elementary teacher, you probably only have to do this once, which is great. So go ahead and fill that out and populate those classes so that your students can get started when you decide you're ready for them to get started. And I will be here to answer questions if you have them. We'll give you about 5 minutes to create your classes. The cohort you're creating now, and we will go ahead and get started again. I will mention that I have slides for all of the processes that I just walked through with you on the teacher dashboard in real time in this slide deck. So how to go to the catalog, how to create a class, all of those slides are going to be included. I just didn't show them because I did them in real time. So just know that they're here for you if you need them. So we are going to go over just a couple more things before we leave each other for our time today. Student registration, as I said, if your students are registering, there is a slide for this. So everfi.com/register, your students are going to add that code that you created for them. They only have to register one time, and then they are going to be into their EverFi account. They can log back in and out at everfi.com/login. Anytime you want them to pick up where they left off. The student dashboard is here too. So if you wanted to show this slide to your students ahead of time to give them an idea of what it's going to look like and where they're going to press start, we have visuals for all of these things in addition to a student quick start guide. If you want just a one-page PDF with quick instructions and visuals, I have that as well. So some student success tips, these honestly go beyond EverFi for the most part. This is going to be true of most tech platforms that you're using, which I know you all got very familiar with over the last year and a half. But the first one, of course, is that the internet is not a superhero, especially if your students are using these resources from home. We just want to make sure that their brother turns off the video games, that their sister turns their smartphone off of the internet as they're flipping through TikTok. Give your computer the most possibility for success with the home internet. All browsers are not created equal. We actually test our resources in Google Chrome, which is true of many tech companies these days. So Google Chrome is our testing environment. It's going to work the best for your students. The third one here is that this warning looks scarier than it is. Basically, when this pops up on a student's computer screen, it means that we tested our resources on a screen that was this size and your screen is this size. All they need to do is click do not show again and close. Nothing's going to happen. Just get rid of that pesky warning. If your students are feeling stuck in a lesson, especially elementary students, they really like to zoom like all the way in on the computer. So if you have them zoom back out, frequently it's just that there's a next button or a next arrow at the bottom that they couldn't see because they were all the way zoomed in. And then of course, if the video really is not loading, refresh. But students really should be clearing their cache pretty frequently, especially with how much time we are spending on computers these days. So clearing the cache does it 9 times out of 10. If not, and it's just one student or two students in your class, but the rest of the class is working, it's usually something that needs to be updated. Browser update, flash update, there's a pop-up that's being blocked, and we have a tech support document for that. So if you feel comfortable with technology, that document is something that you could absolutely check through and be like, oh, it must be this. Or if you have IT on your campus, they're going to be able to read through it and know in a heartbeat what needs to be done. So if you do need support, I am here to help you, but this 99% of what folks email me about when it comes to tech is listed on the screen here. So your next steps, if you want to use these resources, just as a reminder, classes create class. I will take this moment to tell you that we are updating our platform. So if you log in a couple weeks, it may look a little bit different, but the steps are going to be largely the same, just very much simplified. So again, if you need my support at any point, I am here for you. I am going to drop my scheduler link into the chat in case you want to have a quick 10-minute video meeting with me to ask any questions, or if you need support, I'm here for you. Also, if there's someone at your district office that you'd like me to meet with to share some of this information or return your district impact report, which is chock full of just amazing perspectives and knowledge gains for your students, I'm happy to do that. I'll put my email in the chat as well, but you will get this email from me and follow up after the conference. So, does anyone have questions in the last few minutes here? Do students need to re-register every year? Jenna, that is what we suggest. Yes, students tend to forget their username and password over the summer. And if you were not their teacher the year before, you're not going to have access to any of that information. So we suggest we archive your cohorts as a teacher every year. So if you log in July, those cohorts from the previous school year are going to have disappeared. So we suggest that they re-register every year, just like we suggest that you create new cohorts every year. Who else has questions? If you have it, someone else probably has it. Nothing? All right. Well, I am here to answer questions if you are too shy to ask them during the training. So please reach out to me. I really am here to help you. When there's not a pandemic going on, I am driving all around and doing these trainings in person and joining your students in the classroom. So I miss connecting with you all in person, but I'm glad we get to do it over video, at least for the time being. So please reach out if you have any questions. Otherwise, have an absolutely wonderful rest of your conference and rest of your summer.
Thank you so much, Nicole. With that, for attendance purposes, can everyone please, before you sign off, type your first and last name into the chat? This is a way that I can verify that you were here for the entire time. And I just want to give another big grateful thank you to Nicole and Jessica and EverFi for providing this really, really valuable resource to help Arizona teachers teach and incorporate some really important economic concepts and, with our standards. And also thank you all for participating in another one of our S5 summer seminar series. And Tammy, do you have anything real quick before we sign off?
No, just if you guys need extra support with anything standards related, please reach out to Linda and I. We can work with your school district or your school, or we can share with you some different resources to help you. We also do a newsletter every month that has trainings in it, like the training that you had today, plus resources and competitions for students and programs for teachers. If you're interested, put your email in, and you don't already get our social studies newsletter, put your email in the chat and we will add you to our distribution list. Our next one is our welcome back for August. It's coming up soon.
Great. Thank you all so much. I'm going to go ahead and end the meeting now and stop recording.